This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone! Welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. Dr. Michelle Maidenberg has over 30 years of clinical experience and uses the ACE method to help individuals transform their personal and professional lives. During this podcast episode of Eat, Explore, Love, she gives you simple and easy steps based on her book, Ace Your Life, Unleash Your Best Self and Live the Life You Want. Hope you enjoy this inspiring episode of Eat, Explore, Love, the podcast. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Ashley. So happy to be
Would you
here.
be able to tell me and the listeners just a little bit about yourself and what brought us to today?
Sure. So I have a private practice in Harrison, New York. I am the co-director and the clinical director and founder of a nonprofit called Through My Eyes, and it offers free clinically guided videotaping for chronically medically ill individuals who want to leave a video legacy for their children and loved ones. I teach at NYU, and it's a course in integrating mindfulness into clinical practice, which I absolutely love. It's very experiential. I am a member of the American Red Cross team, so I help people in crisis. And then I serve on the board of directors of the Westchester Trauma Network, which is in Westchester County. I do a whole bunch of different types of theoretical, frameworks in my treatment with my clients. And then I'm also an author. I just published my second book, which is very exciting. And actually, the audiobook is coming out somewhere around May 1st, which I am so thrilled about because I don't know about you, but I don't read many books these days. I listen to the audio. So I've been really aching to publish the audiobook, and I narrated it
Oh, that's so
myself,
exciting.
which is yeah, which is really exciting. And most people have given me the feedback that they really appreciate when the author themselves narrate the book. So that's pretty cool. And the new book is called Ace Your Life, Unleash Your Best Self and Live the Life You Want. And it's predicated under acceptance, compassion, and empowerment, which that's what ACE stands for. And then I have a YouTube channel where I do every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. I publish a new guided meditation. And I also blog for Psychology Today. So at least once a month, I publish an article, and I just published one last week, which I usually get my inspiration from people I speak to, my students, my clients, what's going on in the media out there. So what I published last week, which I found so interesting because it gives me an opportunity to research new things too, was on manifesting. Yeah, which was very interesting. What I was finding in my practice, which was very interesting, is, part of the work that I do, and I treat many people with anxiety, particularly.
Mhm.
And what I was finding is that people did not want to speak, like express what they were thinking if it was negative thoughts, because they were fearful that they were going to manifest
Oh,
it. Yeah. Which I found absolutely so interesting because part of the treatment is actually expressing, having acceptance, compassion, empowerment for ourselves. And if you don't speak it, and if you're not kind of face to face with it and present with it, and then you can't really work on it.
So can you walk us through
So,
that ACE method in particular? What brought you to that method and that being what you decided to write an entire book about it? Uh, can you tell us a little
yeah.
bit more about it?
Yeah. So it to me, it's interesting because when I was fielding out, trying to get the book published, I found that the publishers all wanted me to write on a topic or a specific population that I'm going to help. And I said, no, like my work is really about like this
Mm,
framework. It's a method. I call it a method, and it's a framework by which to live your life. So it does actually help. And the way I kind of see it is it helps with all different kinds of
mm,
stuckness. And that takes on a lot of different sizes and shapes for each person. Not everyone has the same stuckness, right? Some people find their stuckness interpersonally, within themselves, whether it's negative self-talk or difficulty motivating themselves or whatever the case is, right? Or it could also be interpersonal, which is in relationships because, right, anything that we're kind of our core wounds, our adverse experiences typically trickle into our relationships. Everything trickles into our relationships. So, if you have this framework, it helps with the relationship you have with yourself and it helps with the relationship you have with others. So that's really where I see the most, I think, value in the work that I'm doing is the ability to increase your confidence and do the things you want to be doing so that you actually feel a sense of pride and confidence in yourself. And whatever we put effort and intentionality into, we strengthen. So that's just kind of the way it is. It's all in the doing.
So when you have a client, what makes them a good candidate for being able to go through this ACE method?
It's really for anybody and everybody, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I teach this actually even to kids, teens, adolescents, young adults. And what's so cool about it is they use my lingo. They'll come in and they'll say, I had a little bit of, a value
Mm,
conflict. And they'll, or I didn't quite lean into my values this week. And it's so beautiful because it really allows them to assess, where they're at and what they want their focus to be, and really assess what is limiting them or what's creating a barrier that's not allowing them to be their best self. So having that information and education when they're
mhm,
young, wow. I mean, I see it's what's so beautiful also is I see one person I'm thinking about just because I spoke to him yesterday is I saw him since middle
mm,
school. And now he's a young adult who's out there, out there in the field, in finance. And it's amazing, the development and the maturity and what he's grappling with as time goes along, right? Really speaks for his growth. Like he is in such an amazing place, but still things are coming up interpersonally. Like now it's more
yeah,
relationship. So, like, even moving him along, right now, even the treatment takes on different forms because he's grappling with, he's never grappled with empowerment necessarily, but he does grapple with acceptance. And that's coming up now because of the industry he's in. Very interesting. Yeah. Right? So when he was in school, other things were coming up for him. Now that he's at work, we've done a lot of work on compassion, like self-compassion, self-love, self-belief, and his confidence is like, wow, exponentially has increased. But now because he's in the again, he's really, really focusing on his career, a lot of other things are coming up. So
yeah,
it changes, developmentally over time. But what's so beautiful is, when I speak to him about it, he knows my lingo. So we talk about it and we go
yeah,
right there, So I don't see him weekly like I used to. I see him periodically when things come up, it's kind of
mm.
maintenance now because he has the skills, he has the tools, he has the toolbox, he has the method down pat. And when he kind of reaches a bump in the road, I'm there to support him. Yeah, it's a nice thing.
That's lovely to hear, and it's good to hear that you are seeing that children are coming to you as well, because I was just talking about this with somebody else. I think I've been preaching, especially since COVID, that if nothing else made this abundantly clear, COVID did, of we need, yes, great for a phys ed class, but we also need a mental health class. And we need that starting from kindergarten, of giving these kids the tools in the toolbox. Cause I feel bad. They're grappling with things that we have never seen before. I call myself the in-between generation, where I grew up in a world where, yes, you still played outside till the street lights came on, but we were also starting to have TV babysitters, and cell phones were just starting to come out, and Facebook came out when I was in middle school. So it was it, even I can't relate to things that my sister, who just turned 17, how she grew up. I feel like we're in totally different. I have more in common with my grandparents than I do with my 17-year-old sister and how we grew up.
And I actually have a younger sister too, which is interesting, and I
Yeah.
see that too. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's great, especially when there's that large age gap. It's crazy.
Yeah,
But but
absolutely.
with I I will say the United States is better about this than other places in the world, but we still have so much longer to go. Do you, and the access to healthcare in general, let alone mental health care, is still lacking, and we're still trying to figure all that out. With your book going out, I feel like that's great that these books are starting to come out, so it gives people that may not have be able to have the ability to see someone like you, but they have access to your book. Is that what the book's purpose is? Is it able to be a tool, or does it need to be a companion piece with a professional as well?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, it could be used solo. The book is intended to go in and
Mhm.
out of it. So, like I said, right, the person I'm working with, he's stymied a little bit, right, in a specific area. So, he recognizes that the acceptance piece, for whatever reason right now, is, a little bit, I would say, yeah, for whatever reason, the barometer's low on the acceptance piece. So and we talk about it, and he knows, oh, you know what, I need to kind of reread that and just, feel that out and see where
Yeah.
I'm at in that space. So you could weave in and out of it. Not everyone's going to be in the same space. The other thing too is, like I said, it is a
Right.
roadmap. So you don't have to necessarily listen. It's always helpful to work with a practitioner. I'm all for it. you know, so I definitely want to say that. However, this doesn't need to be used with a practitioner. Yeah, absolutely not. The way that I structured it purposefully, and if you notice in the subtitle, it's called Unleash Your Best Self and Live the Life You Want. So the belief is that it is already within us. We have all the tools and skills we need, but for whatever reason, we don't have access to it. And there's a variety of reasons why
Mhm.
that is. So, the beginning of the book, I talk about our thoughts, and it's all about the physiology of our
Yeah.
thinking, because we really can't understand ourselves and why we're driven in the way that we are without understanding our thinking, both on a physiological level, on a social level, spiritual level, and so forth. The second chapter focuses on values, because a lot of the work that I do is really centers around values. That is a critical piece. And it really, values are a guide to action. It gives you a roadmap. The acceptance, compassion, empowerment, I split it up into two chapters each, because I think you need to know about the barriers to each in order to know about how to
Yeah.
integrate. So the first part of it talks about the barriers. The second part talks about how to specifically integrate it using experiential exercises. I end each chapter with a guided meditation, actually, that, with a QR code, yeah, to integrate the information. But you need to have that foundational information and knowledge, not only to buy into it, because I don't want anyone to just say, oh, yeah, I'm going to listen to what she's saying. I want you to prove it to yourself. That's where the magic is. That's where the secret
Mhm.
sauce is. It's not because I'm saying it. Like, I know it works because I've seen it work with people that I
Yeah.
work with, but you need to practice it yourself and try it on. And it's going to look differently. So, people typically have transcribe, right, and have a very specific kind of mechanism by which they teach. Mine are general skills that apply to you based on where
Right.
you're at. And I teach you how to apply it to wherever you're at, whatever point of stuckness you're at, you could apply it.
Do you find as you're talking with various clients or getting feedback for your book that there is a pattern of maybe certain age groups tend to grapple with needing acceptance over the others, or so on and so forth? Or is there no pattern? It's just totally person and experience dependent?
I have to tell you, it's fat. So I want to tell you this because it's fascinating. So I told you I teach this course
Mhm.
at NYU, and yesterday, it just so happens, yesterday I teach on Tuesdays. It just so happens that the section that I taught yesterday was on self-compassion and trauma and self-compassion, right? I have them watch, which I actually include in my book. I have them watch these three like very short YouTube
Mhm.
clips. Okay. One of them is two doors. Okay. One says average and one says beautiful. And people are walking towards them and they have to decide which door they're going to go through.
Mm.
Okay. So you observe the process by which people are deciding this. It's incredible. The second one is called Dove's Beauty Sketches. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Also, so interesting. You have a sketch artist, basically, that sits with a person. The person describes themselves, they sketch it, and then you have an outside person, again, somebody who is outside, doesn't know the person, who observes the person, describes the person, and then again, that person gets
Oh,
sketched.
wow.
Yes. And then you have the two pictures side by side. Okay. And the person who got sketched sees the two pictures. And inevitably, which you can imagine, okay, the one in which they describe themselves is so distorted, right? Typically. And they are so much more attractive in the one that the
Yeah.
stranger, right,
Yeah.
transcribed. Yes. And then you see the reactions of people who observe these pictures of themselves, which is, again, the third video. Okay, I show them. And then I also have them do a couple of other exercises. But the third video is a video by which people have a sign, right? A piece of paper with their name on it that describes their negative core belief about
Mm.
themselves. Okay. And I do this actually as an activity. I did this last week with them in class where they had to wear a name tag the entire class of their negative core belief. Okay. At the beginning of class, they have to wear it
Yeah.
throughout class. Then they walk around the room, they observe each other's negative core belief, and then they have to offer loving kindness to each other non-verbally. So the third video, going back to the third video, they each have a sign, and I'm going to answer your question. I didn't forget. They each have a sign which has the negative core belief. Now, of course, you could imagine what comes up. I'm not good enough. I'm lazy. I'm fat. I'm stupid. I'm too much. Nobody likes me, whatever. Okay, we each have that. And then the punch, the boom is at the end. You have a little girl. Okay, these are all adults. And by the way, just to let you know, the adults that are in the video, I know because I'm part of this kind of treatment group, are all highly educated and such impressive humans. I cannot even tell you because I know them. They've each written books and they're all like incredible humans. Forget about even the fact what they've done. They're like human being, incredible humans. And the thing, the sign, the way that they describe themselves. And I know the first time that I saw that video, there's one person in the video that I actually have a relationship with, and she is a superstar. Like I can't even tell you. And the word that she had was
Mm.
disgusting. And I literally had tears running down my eyes because I felt such compassion. Like, how is she seeing herself that way? What?
Mm.
Like, are we seeing the same person? Anyway, the end is a kid. And guess what? Same thing.
Yeah.
They had a negative core belief
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
themselves. And you end off leaving feeling like, gosh, that is so sad. It's not just adults, it's kids too. So going back to your question, we
Yeah.
all, okay, from when we're little, have negative core beliefs about ourselves. Why is that? A, because it's the way our mind is wired. Okay, our mind is wired to protect us from discomfort and from danger. Okay. So we automatically are in a defensive, protective
Right.
posture from when we're practically out of the womb, so to speak, right? Or I shouldn't say that. I think when we develop kind of more of our social mores, when we kind of understand, when we start comparing ourselves to others, when we kind of understand all of that moral judgment and everything else that happens, right? At Kohlberg stages, um, we have that when we're really young. And if you remember, if you think back, like when you were a child, you could remember having sadness, right? You could remember comparing yourselves to other people. You could remember feeling inadequate or right, insecure, etc. So yes, it's so formative. It's so, so formative,
Do you
unfortunately.
find, because I did an exercise similar to that in high school, we had a peer education class, and we had to put a piece of paper on our backs. We didn't put our anything negative on the front of how we believed in ourselves, because high schoolers don't have the emotional maturity to be able to deal with that with each other. But people would randomly,
Yes, they do. Yes, yes, they do, by the way. They do.
I other
No, they do.
my classmates, it would have been it was used against me whenever I was that vulnerable. So in that way, it wasn't good. But I but
That's
they did.
yes.
We put it on our backs, and people had to write something positive, and you did it anonymously. You couldn't know who wrote what and whatnot. And the
Oh, I
things
love
that you
that.
found out
Yeah.
about what people thought about you anonymously. And again, I was growing up in the internet age where people were using it truly just for negative. That was the only interactions I was having with people online, was they were, and there was a platform where literally people submitted things to you anonymously, was the whole purpose of it. And I got ripped apart every single day on that platform. And I wish I could remember the name of it, or maybe I don't want to. But it was and I still have that piece of paper, and I go back to it and it's like, oh, that's so nice. But to your point of the gentleman that you worked with yesterday, or whenever it was, that it's changed over time of what that negative core belief is. So do you find that people in their 20s, or the versus their 30s versus their 40s versus their 80s, have similar core negative beliefs about themselves, or is it still very individual and it as it evolves throughout time?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think as we age, and mature, I think like 20-year-olds obviously are preoccupied because they're a different stage
Yeah.
development, right? So they may be in an intimate partner relationship or not, but typically during that time you're looking for a partner or, so if that's the case, like you're concerned about your level of attractiveness, you're concerned, there's certain things that you're concerned about more so I think than if you're like
Yeah.
60,
Yeah.
right? Right. There you're going to do more of a life review. You're going to think about whether you have
Yeah.
connections, I think in general, most people, it goes back to us wanting to have really viable connections with others. That is a really critical piece. It takes on different forms and shapes and sizes as we
Mhm.
age, but that's always important. And we know even today through research that connection leads to longevity, that there's a correlation. So we live longer lives when we
Yeah.
have connections. Like that is actually a fact, right? Um, I think we're preoccupied with different things as we
Yeah.
age, so like finances, as an example, right? Or our financial
Yeah.
security. That's not gonna, I mean, that'll be important when you're in your 30s, of course, but it's very different when you're in your 70s.
Yeah.
All right. Even our physicality, our
Yeah.
health, right? Like somebody in their 20s, they're at their
Yeah.
prime. In your 20s, you're going to be in a very different place when you're in your
Yeah. Yeah.
50s.
So, if there's we have your book, there are mental health practitioners out there. What are some simple things that you feel like if people are encountering this acceptance and compassion and empowerment stuff, what are some simple things that people can do to address it and get to the root cause of it, and like get themselves to level themselves out, so to speak, for lack of a better way of phrasing
Yeah, so that's a
it?
whole book. So I'll
Just a few simple, one simple thing.
yeah, I will. I think people get confused when I say
Mhm.
acceptance, right? They think, oh, I have to accept myself, but that means I have to accept mediocrity. And that means that I'm not going to be motivated to make changes and enhance myself. And that's not what we're talking
Yeah.
about at all. Okay. It really means noticing. It really means noticing because we tend, because our mind is wired that way, to avoid and distract, right? And resist and do all those funny exciting things to avoid discomfort. So it's really just being with, it's observing, it's trying it on for size. So I'll give you an example of another exercise I did before I showed them the video. the videos, I gave them a picture of a mask, and it had two sides. It's the things we want people to see and the things we don't want
Mhm.
people to see. So they filled that out before they, before, and then after that, I gave them kind of a prompt where they had to write a paragraph identifying up the part of themselves that they don't want people to see, and write a paragraph and basically express if they were to be self-compassionate to that part of them, what would they say to that
Mhm.
part,
Yeah.
right? So that's an example. So self-compassion is, or compassionate in general, is something that we don't learn. We never learn that. We learn to be compassionate towards
Yeah.
others. We don't learn to be self-compassionate. We're not taught that. You talked about, social skills and social emotional learning and all that stuff. You alluded to it at least. Yeah, that is tremendously it's in
Mhm.
schools all over the country. It's very sad. I mean, I think that's just as much as important as
Yeah.
academics. And I could tell you I've tried to integrate it into schools, and guess what I get? We don't have enough time because we have the curriculum. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're teaching people to be learners, but you're not teaching people how to live. That's going to be really functional, helpful in society.
Yeah.
Great. So I see the people who have difficulty with their coping
Yeah.
skills, right? Yeah. No, I mean, that doesn't really help
Yeah.
much. And by the way, not to mention everything that's going on in the world, right? Like, I mean, I could just talk about New York City. The crime has increased exponentially. People are acting out. People are
Yeah.
suffering. People are wounded. And we're seeing it. Like, you can't ignore it. It's
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's I
Yeah.
feel so I spoke about before that kids were having to do things that I never grew up with, and I don't want this to become like a political discussion, but school shootings are
Yeah.
rampant in a way that they were only like, I think when I was going to school, it was Columbine, and then Sandy Hook didn't happen until my senior year of high school. I think maybe there were 1 or 2 in between, but, like, it wasn't the thing where there was a point where I feel like I was hearing about it at least every other week of something happening in these schools, so of course these kids are just I don't blame them for having such severe anxieties. My cousin is a guidance counselor, and the stories that she tells me about all the experiences she's having with these students, and I was super judgmental at first, but the more I thought about it, the more compassion I feel. And you're absolutely right of that we have a tendency to be compassionate towards others, but not ourselves. And I learned that's a behavior I learned was to put other people ahead of myself to my detriment.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I feel like that is also just continues. And what are some ways of that people are able to combat all of the chaos of what this world is and give themselves self love from the men?
Yeah, and I'm gonna give you a little
Yeah,
simple tip, which is right, and it sounds so simple, but I'll use the example of even looking in
yeah,
the mirror, right? So we look in the mirror when we brush our teeth, when we're checking to see if right our makeup looks okay, but we don't really look at ourselves. Like when was the last time that you looked into your
yeah.
eyes? And it is a simple little task to do, but I have to tell you, it evokes so much emotion. And I know even when I do it, it's a little kind of
Yeah.
uncomfortable, right? Like, but I will. I'll talk to myself and I'll say, "You got this,
Mhm.
girl. You got this. I know this is hard for you. I know this is making you anxious, and I know this is a little bit of a struggle, but you got this. You've done this before. You know
Yeah.
this." Right? And you won't know until you try. And even if it doesn't work out, you tried, or whatever it is, right? That's like a simple little thing. There's all different kinds of things you could do in terms of touch. So
Mm.
even crossing your arm and putting your arms, it's like kind of the forms of a butterfly. But if you massage your arms, right, that's very self-compassion. Even when I do this, like I'm doing it now just to show you, I actually feel the sensations in my
Yeah.
body of touch. We automatically react to touch. If you put your hands on your chest, right, and hug your heart. If you put your hands like one on your chest and one on your abdomen. Another amazing thing is if you even put your hands on your
Mhm.
face, you cradle your face, right? Words of affirmation, And the most important thing I have to say is noticing every single time you lean into your core
Mm.
values. So it might sound inconsequential, but every single time I lean into my value of thoughtfulness, I stop, I take note of it, I feel it in my body, I connect to it on a visceral level, and I note my
Yeah.
accomplishment. And that contributes to my confidence. That contributes it actually I have a dopamine
Yeah.
and serotonin and cortisol
Yeah.
reaction. Okay. So that feels good, and I want
Yeah.
more of that. So I wanna do that again and again and again because there's actually a physiological response, and I'm changing the structure of my brain, which is absolutely incredible. I was just listening this morning to, it's a very well-known book, but I'm listening to it again because I said, "You know what? I wanna listen to this." It's, The Body Keeps the
Mhm.
Score by Vanderkolk, but it's a very, it's kind of the go-to book for trauma. Um, and he was talking specifically about MRIs and looking at MRIs of people who are traumatized, and how you could actually see the reaction, okay, on a neurocognitive level when somebody talks about or connects to their trauma as opposed when they're at steady
Mm.
state and their autonomic nervous system isn't activated or reactive. Like you
Yeah.
could see it. I mean, how
Wow.
amazing is that? And if you think about the accumulation of stress, trauma, whatever it is over a period of years, and we all have stress, right? There's a difference between stress and distress, but we all have it. So could you imagine what havoc it wreaks over time, metabolically and physiologically, when we're not taking care of ourselves and we're not noticing all of our accomplishments and we're not, again, feeding and changing the structure of our brain, that is actually
Yeah.
prohibitive. Like, we're literally taking years off of our life. Like, I mean
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and it just takes these small little things,
Yeah.
So when I did a guided meditation in my class yesterday, I did a self-compassion guided meditation, I ended off and I said, "You are all worthy." And I said, "When you hear this, how do you feel in your body when I say to you, you are worthy? What does that feel like? What are you thinking?" You may have judgments coming up, right? You may have resistance. You may have discomfort. Just be with that. Feel that. Try it on for size. What does that feel like? Right? Just being with it in the present moment. And that's where the magic
Yeah.
is.
What has been I just wanna be aware of the time, so this will be my last big question, then I'll go into a little quick
Oh,
rapid fire with you, but,
sure.
what has been the biggest learning in writing your book and the aftermath of it coming out?
Well, on a very personal level, it has changed my life. Actually, the process of writing it changed my life tremendously in a lot of ways. You know, if if you read the book, I interweave a story that's going on in my life during the moment when I'm writing it, and one of my closest friends was dying of lung
I'm
cancer.
sorry.
As I was writing the book, thank you. I also talk about the unfortunate and premature death of my nephew, who was 15 when he died of an
I'm so sorry.
accident. And I talk about thank you, and I talk about, like, some personal things. I talk about a lot of, like, clients that I've worked with and their situations so that people could relate to it. But it really, like, I live, breathe, and, my life really functions around the work that
Mm.
I do, and I've seen such substantial change in my life and the choices and decisions that I've made. And in terms of relationships that I've decided that I need to distance from, those types of relationships I need to connect to more. That has been huge, huge for me in a really fundamental way.
Yeah, that's incredible. And just from hearing you speak about the exercises that you do with your students, and it always says a lot to me when someone has a professional career and then they also are a teacher on top of that, which is its own full
Mhm.
time job. Uh, my mother's a teacher, and my grandmother was a teacher, so maybe I'm a bit biased when I say teachers are always special. And when you choose to do that along with everything else that you do, tells me that you're quite a special
Mm,
person. So thank you, and,
thank you.
I wanna go take your class. I wish I was smart enough to get into NYU and to take your class. I wish I was book smart
Oh,
enough, I
yeah.
should say, to get into NYU. Um,
And by the way, after my students take my class, they're like, everyone should
Yeah.
take this class. Like, especially every type of practitioner should take
Yeah.
this class. And it is these, they walk away, which I really appreciate. They say to me, like, this not has not only helped me with my clients, but it helped me personally. And that is like the biggest gift. When I hear that, I just like, gosh, I'm like, I did
Yeah.
my job, and I feel so
That's
great about that.
amazing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely see that in how you're speaking and communicating with me about all this right now. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. So your book, let's give the title one more time, and I'm going to put it in the show notes in the description so everybody goes and buys
Sure.
it. The name of your book is
Thank you. It's Ace Your Life, Unleash Your Best Self, and Live the Life You Want. And like I said, it's coming out in audio as well. Now it's out, obviously, Kindle and soft cover, but it's coming out around May 1st.
perfect, amazing. So my rapid fire questions, it's all in the Eat, Explore, Love
Yeah.
vein, so a little cheeky. Uh, so what is your favorite food city?
Favorite food? I have to say coconut and
Where
peanut
do you
butter.
have a place where it's been the best
Oh, a place. Okay, I thought you meant a food.
city?
What do oh gosh. You know what? There's this kind of healthy organic place in the city called
Okay.
Beatnik. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Love it.
And when you're planning a vacation, do you prefer one where you're relaxed or that you're active?
Active. Yeah. Action. I love action. I can't sit. I love culture and I love exploring and I love like meeting new people and yeah, totally active.
Amazing. And then for the final question, where is the city that you learned the most about yourself?
Oh gosh. That is a tough one. Huh. Maybe New York City, I'll
That's a
say.
totally fair one.
Yeah.
That's a fair one.
Yeah. Just because I love, again, I love diversity and
Yeah.
culture and arts. I love the arts. Love the arts. So I think, yeah, very enriching, all
Yeah.
of that.
I have to take a break from New York for a little bit. Because I was born and raised there, so I feel like you need some time and space apart to love each other again. Yes.
That's true. That's true. Well, I was recently in Portugal, so that was a
I
good
was
little.
also just in Portugal about 2 months ago. It was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lovely. Loved it. Loved
Well,
it.
it was amazing and lovely speaking with you. I know that you have other appointments to get to, so I don't want to keep you, but thank you for all the education today. I really appreciated learning from you. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you
Yeah,
for having me.
absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat, Explore, Love the podcast with my guest, Dr. Michelle Maidenberg. Make sure you check out the show notes for a link to her book, Ace Your Life, Unleash Your Best Self and Live the Life You Want. Till next time. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.